for a particular matchup. But despite the nerfs that she has received in terms of the engage range of that between worlds, it is still a powerful tool to make those picks happen. And I mean, the laning phase itself is just such a nightmare to deal with, and she's so slippery to try and lock down. And with things like Vi and Sejuani already gone within this Fearless format, there's not many junglers that have guaranteed lockdown that you can try and collapse onto this Aurora. So Kanavi says, you know what? I think it is time to go for the Monkey King and add some of that team fighting power with the Cyclone. And it's just going to come down to making sure that the rest of Top Esports don't really need him on the map for any gank setup until then.
They're just gone, right? We were talking about having to play in a Fearless format. You don't have the Vi anymore. There's no Sejuani, there's no Maokai, so I like the shout that you're giving there. No hard lockdown here coming in for TES. Their composition already kind of providing a lot of crowd control, so I want to see what damage they're going to have to complement this. And Beichuan and SeTab, I'm assuming this Aurora is going to be mid, although we have been seeing it flexed into the solo lanes, up into top lane. Between these two, this should be a really competent 2v2 that I'm looking forward to, whether or not they can actually leverage into early game advantages. Now, TES answering with a Viktor on the opposite side. I'm really wanting to see from TT in an early game in a series where so far the first 8 to 10 minutes from them has actually been really, really well played, to apply pressure onto Kanavi and Creme, make sure that Creme doesn't get off the ground running with this Viktor, and then set up for potentially, again, either playing for those grubs like we've been seeing, or maybe even a change up in strategy, because they haven't actually been able to really kind of turn the grub wins into actually, I think, pushing the state of the game in a more meaningful manner versus TES.
Yeah.
I think you might have to make the adaptation mid-series saying, look, the series may not have to come down to us split pushing. I don't think we're going to try to win the map versus them. Let's just play around team fights and kind of play more around the style that brought us here to the semifinals.
And as we're heading into, or actually already halfway through the second round of bans, a couple of the marksmen that we noted that might have been pretty ideal for 1xM to pick up, gone from the table. No Caitlyn. Good note of the Xayah also being taken away from JackeyLove as a pretty notable champion to try and dodge a lot of these engage tools with that Featherstorm. I'm curious, the fact that ThunderTalk have pretty much fully shown their cards when it comes to the top side of the map. This gives, Top Esports the ability to save JackeyLove a counter pick of choice, which you normally don't say often for marksmen in League of Legends competitive meta, but this is one of the few times where you tell 369, like, hey, do you have an answer for Gnar right now? And if he says yeah, lock it in, and you can get really spicy with JackeyLove's marksman of choice.
Let's go, Mark. Flex those muscles. That's what I like to hear, brother. Let's go.
Oh my goodness.
And it's Jhin. All right. Well, you kind of just did part of my job here, so if there was going to be a Jhin, I was going to say we can bring in Lennon. Mazelle's already kind of waiting in the wings anyway, kind of helping us do socials tonight, so if he wants to be here to talk about Jhin, I'd love to give him the stage, because I hate that champion. So, look, it's just what I think the big focus when you look at the second phase of bans, 4 AD carries, Aphelios and Caitlyn taken away. I think mostly the Aphelios being 1xN's most played champion in his career, and then the Xayah and Kai'Sa, they want to take away tools from JackeyLove to have a little bit more safety and give him some tools to be able to peel for himself. So I like this, a strong bottom lane pair with this Jhin and Bard, and despite no Braum being picked up here, the Bard being an answer into either the Viktor or stopping the Ornn is a really creative pick, something that we've started to see more and more in this tournament coming out from our supports.
All right, JackeyLove, what's in the gumbo pot? What are we cooking up? And Sivir, wow, I'm not gonna lie, not the most exciting, playmaking marksman that I was thinking of. I was gonna try and see if I could get your opinion on if can Vayne exist in this, but it doesn't. I'm not sure if I'm not a marksman player, so I don't know what really feels ideal with so many marksmen already off the table, and if you want to balance both safety and damage output. But JackeyLove with the Sivir pick, correct me if I'm wrong, is more of a selfless pick, because you are enabling your team with the ultimate and just giving things like a Wukong and a Viktor more movement speed to navigate in this team fight.
Yeah, so Sivir, I think the way that you kind of described her is a really kind of, I think the most obvious and something more of like the low-hanging fruit of how this champion works. She applies movement speed to her teammates with her ultimate. She can clear waves, which allows her to be one of the best AD carries to just sit in mid and wave clear and allow your team to kind of make plays on the sides of the map. But for JackeyLove, and with Sivir receiving, I think, a really a really disgusting amount of buffs just back to back to back when you look at her patch history, she can be a bit of a poke champion. I know there was some experimentation over the last year and a half about like a lethality build. It's been kind of on the fringes as to whether or not that's actually real or not. And even just her regular on-hit crit build can be really, really dangerous and something that someone like Jhin actually ends up struggling with. And one of the reasons why even Static Shiv was very popular was that it gave Jhin not only the ability to proc his Deadly Flourish, but also ease some of those wave clear woes that you would have from Jhin very early on. But I mean, for JackeyLove, it's going to be them trying to push this wave in, and I want to see whether or not they're really going to be playing for a dive on a bottom lane or allow for Crisp to also match someone like Feather's Bard on the map and see if they can make plays around some other lanes.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing I think about when Sivir has been meta, or at least very strong in previous metas that we've seen, is usually when a lot of the other champions that are kind of in the fold are either relatively short range or melee heavy, because then your boomerang blade gets so much value. I don't know if this is the most short range hindered on the side of ThunderTalk, because you know there's two relatively melee champions with Zhao and then Gnar. I'm just curious if JackeyLove, how much difficulty is he going to have navigating these team fights, or if it's one of those cases where his contributions does not matter. You know, I'm
just gonna say he has, even if by accident JackeyLove does not do enough damage, he can just press W and he can just be there and he will rack up some DPS numbers. Sure. And the big thing for them is going to be, first of all, getting Creme all of his evolves. That's going to be a really important mark. So we need to be seeing Creme getting last hits on minions and also being really participatory in a lot of early fights. But they have enough damage, I think, from the side of TES. You have the Ornn for setup. You have Crisp as well. I think with a Wukong and a Viktor, with a Sivir alongside that, I think this team is really well balanced to allow for upgrades and specifically to get Creme his upgraded ultimate to kind of expand across a team fight. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. As we get into this game, however, we're about 2.5 minutes in. Seeing a lane swap immediately here. Finally one where it is just a full-on commit to the lane swap. JackeyLove picking up all this wave alongside his top laner, and a large amount of focus towards his bottom lane as Feather and 1xN are going to crash this wave. I don't think 369 is going to be allowed to TP to this play, even with Chris being here.
Yeah, it's a 4-man strong push from the side of ThunderTalk. I think Top Esports are just calling this audible and saying, it's a little too dangerous to TP in. Just as I say that, they're going to go for it, and Chris will emerge from Fog to try and see if they can pull off some of that magic we saw in the second game. Already, Beichuan has to dip from the stacking turret aggro, and now it resets. ThunderTalk waiting for their moment to wait for those cooldowns, get them back up. Good charge, but Beichuan dodges out of the way before the Ignite eventually gets him, but it doesn't because he flashes over the wall, and Chris cannot get another bit of damage to finish off the kill. And this time, learning from their woes in that second game, Dimitri, ThunderTalk pull off a clean dive.
Let's go! They did it! They actually were able to get the level 2 dive, level 3 dive off there. They get gold for themselves. They get 2 plates from this bottom lane. And that's not to say the same for JackeyLove and Crisp. Obviously, Crisp making his way down here. 369 loses out. I'm going to be honest, I love lane swaps as a theory. As for the fun of the game and actually being able to play a video game even at a professional level, I feel so bad for top laners. These guys are 0 CS at 4 minutes almost. They get to very infrequently actually play League of Legends, especially in the last couple of years with what the role has been. Ever since they even put in Void Grubs, they kind of had to be like, okay, well, top lane doesn't actually matter in the game, so we have to add an extra objective to kind of pull the map away from bottom lane. This is mostly just my speech and draft to try to bring some more justice to our solo laners.
You
up in the
know,
top
I,
lane.
I I like the pathos, angle you're going for, because when we're trying to convince someone who is a defender. Hang
Uh-oh,
on,
SeTab.
SeTab is in trouble, and Kanavi just has too many dashes to be able to keep up with SeTab despite the flash, and it's just a well-timed gank. Creme had that wave in a very difficult position for that Aurora, and he had just used teleport a couple minutes ago here, Dimitri. So that is going to make SeTab's life even harder, as now he is falling behind in experience against this Viktor.
And that's some of the Viktor bucks we were talking about. He got himself a little bit more of an upgrade. They did change, so for people who are maybe at home and they're like, why is there a new Viktor icon on my screen? This is another instance of Kanavi. So he does get spotted. SeTab knows he's on this side of the map, and yet I don't think he really has an option. I think maybe preferably he kind of walks towards the top side of his lane, maybe not necessarily looking at his mini-map at the same time, showcasing some of the smarts of someone like Kanavi. Kanavi being really, really in tune with where enemy vision is as well. We saw that, I think, in the first game played really, really well.
Yeah.
But how much of New Viktor have you actually read?
Red?
Yes.
I know that his ulti now gets bigger as the team fight goes on. I think it's like
Okay. Yeah.
maybe with how many kills you get in a fight.
Yeah, so they changed some of his numbers. They gave him a little bit more damage. He picks up stacks a little slower from his passive, and more so kind of looking towards getting him to fight early on instead of farming cannon minions. But the big one for them is going to be the fact that the ultimate, once it's fully upgraded, gets larger as you get more takedowns, and it has a longer duration when you do get takedowns. So it gets larger and larger. We're having our first fight over the grubs. Creme is over here and has hit level 6, so this is a tough spot for TT if they want to commit any more.
And so clutch for top esports. Beichuan was trying to get that smite on the second Void Grub, but I think Creme got the last hit on it, so just a little bit of a miss smite from the jungler ThunderTalk. They get 2 grubs for themselves, and SeTab is not going to be in so much trouble that he's going down a second time this game, but no flash does make it difficult for him to endure in this lane, now that Creme has already been accelerated thanks to the efforts of Kanavi.
Man, tough spot, especially with that first blood. It gave over level 6 for SeTab, still not being able to hit it. He'll get it on this wave, but it cuts out so many of the early advantages that I think TT were kind of looking for. We haven't seen this Bard really get a roam off. SeTab's just going to get solo killed here.
He pops the Between Worlds, trying to play off of the pressure from Feather, but the fact that Kanavi doesn't really contribute much to the fight other than just the sheer presence of him being able to step in as a second man is enough to force SeTab and Feather back off, trying to fight for control of that minion wave, but SeTab is forced to concede it for now, as now Chris and Kanavi are going to threaten him under the tower, and it looks like Chris could have actually just solo killed him by himself, but making sure to donate that kill credit over to Kanavi, making this Wukong even more accelerated.
Now Hoya has to back off because they know they cross into the top side of the map. TES just make it look easy right now as they are just bullying SeTab out of the mid lane. They'll take control of the top side jungle and at the very least take the blue buff. I wonder if they'll try to overextend more to really secure JackeyLove a couple more waves and give him some more gold coming up to this dragon fight. I mean, we got Void Grubs as well in 2.5 minutes. This is looking good, especially for TES, who so far in this series have had 2 early games that not really go their way up against ThunderTalk.
And this is probably the best early game we've seen out of top esports so far, as they've been able to deflect a lot of the pressure that ThunderTalk has been looking for, as we're getting... Is that what they're calling out? Oh my... That is so disrespectful.
Oh my god,
these
these observers are very
so
based.
That's so based. They're just pretty much calling out Beichuan's like, why are you going for this control ward when you clearly need to help mid lane?
Yeah, man, walk mid. That dude, okay, low-key, Beichuan just did a Raafaa impression. For everybody at home, if you ever get to play with this guy, he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go for the grubs here. I'm going to go for my crab here. Oh, Beichuan uses the ultimate, is able to get out from the rest of the team, but that's going to be an ult missing for the upcoming grubs fight. And his mid laner, rightfully so, mad that my jungler just left.
Listen, I had to put up with Zhao flaming me on the LCS broadcast for 2 years, just throwing in strays.
And
Oh, come on, man. Leave me alone. Let me
there is
have
no
some
justice,
peace.
no peace out
No.
on these rifts.
And it's definitely no peace for SeTab, as he can't even get a crumb of the minion wave as Kanavi and Crisp come in straight in and bullying him away from the tower. As 369 is going to endure himself against Hoya. Now that there's no CC from this minion R, is going to just throw out the Call of the Forge God. I mean, 369 definitely looked like he was in trouble, but now Kanavi and Crisp, they surfed on over to mid lane, pushed SeTab out. They're going to do the same to Hoya. Not necessarily in lethal range, but just the pressure alone will force him away from being able to continuously harass 369.
You thought you were safe coming over to LPL English, like I would.
Come on, you know, man.
You're lucky, by the way, because you literally. I think this is more so like karmic justice after that first broadcast you did with Cubby, where you were just flaming. You were dogging him for like 3 hours straight. I'm look. This is just the world come back to karmic rebalance you. Okay, this is only how this works now. Okay,
you're standing up for the color casters on the LPL broadcast. I get it. I get it.
So we've got grubs coming up. I think it's a tough fight. Creme has literally a full level. He's about to hit level 9 here, and SeTab's only breaching level 8 now. So really big advantage here for TES's mid laner. They now have the level 6 for their support. I'm going to be looking for how they can play this as JackeyLove. If he survives this, it is a massive win for TES, as now ThunderTalk are not really in a great position to help contest for these grubs.
And Beichuan might be in trouble here. Still has flash available, throws out the Crescent Guard, pushes Crisp away, and forces him to battle dance back to safety. A teleport is coming in from 369, but he's on the other side of that wall. He's going to try to take up as much as him, but he is forced to flash after losing more than 75% of his HP. Second rotation of grubs. 2 have been picked up by Top Esports, so now they've secured 4 for themselves. ThunderTalk, they need to escort Beichuan into range so that they can look for it, and it's actually 1xN that gets the 4th bullet, but the fight emerges and erupts, and Crisp is the first one to fall. A good-tempered fate stops Kanavi in his tracks and tries to dissuade any moment for Top Esports to look for the further engagement. Kanavi throws down the Cyclone, but flashes already came out from the side of ThunderTalk, as now the curtain call looking for one more bullet, but it's not enough to finish off JackeyLove, and ThunderTalk somehow stand tall in the fight.
What a messy fight here from both of our teams. It turns into a couple kills here for 1xN. I don't know why we're ever teleporting into that play from 369. His ult was no longer available. Hoya still had Mega Gnar. I just think that TES looking for way too much in there, and I want to take a look at how this kind of plays out. So Chris was able to kind of get the immediate ult out from Beichuan, which is great. 369 enters. He has no ultimate. He doesn't even bother to try to use the flash early to get away. So now there's no real front line for this TES team. And kind of watch how much damage 1xN is able to do. I mean, he's kind of just posturing around. They're able to get those grubs here. And it's only around this choke where I think Creme on this champion can actually do any kind of effective work. And for everybody at home, I just want everybody to see what Kanavi does here. So, flash, ult, nothing. Alright, cool. I need some jungle justice after that game 1 Pog steal.
Well, there's still a chance for potentially Creme to pick up an MVP this game if he finds his moment on this Viktor. He's been building up a small gold advantage thanks to a lot of the resources being put his way. He didn't get any of the kill credit on Top Esports in their, 2-3 picks that they've made so far. Most of the gold has gone into Kanavi's pocket, which has allowed him to be able to pick up this Trinity Force so early on into the game. But Top Esports, they're not running away with the game just yet. ThunderTalk, the fact that they were able to find a decent advantage despite, losing a majority of the grubs this game, gives them a little bit of reprieve, and we have the second dragon of the game spawning not anytime soon, still another 4.5 minutes to go, whereas Rift Herald could be the next play. The Top Esports seem to already have a lot of their members in position for it.
Thankfully for TT, this is not a squad from the top esports side that is really concerned about playing for side lanes or necessarily kind of pushing the boundaries. It is going to turn into some more gold here as the plates start to fall. Creme getting his another plate for himself. He'll also be able to recall, finish his first item. This right now, this Herald fight is probably the best it's going to get for ThunderTalk. I don't expect for TES to look to try to contest this right now. I think there are really big item spikes coming in for ThunderTalk, and if they can grab this Herald for themselves, I do want to see them use this, move into mid, and if they're not going to use it on mid, maybe we look on side lanes, we get SeTab back in this game, because as much as I would love to accelerate some of the carries, I think for this game, you really, really want SeTab to actually be a contributing member of the team. And I don't know if 1xN is necessarily at the point that he is so far ahead that he can kind of overwhelm or overcome that disadvantage.
Yeah, Collector Rush and 3 kills to this Jhin allows him to deal with the squishy members on the top esports. But this build is not going to fare so well against 369 the later the game does go on. As we know, historically, Jhin into tanks, unfortunately, not always the easiest to deal with, and so it all rides on ThunderTalk being able to now use this advantage from the Jhin to be able to give a little bit of that acceleration and love back into other carries as teleports are coming in.
Okay, both top laners are coming in from different sides of the fight. 1xN is currently farming in mid, but this Herald is almost down, and there's no jungler in the area.
Oh, really good Tempered Fate. Creme could be the target here. Here comes Call of the Forge God as it splits up the fight. Kanavi secures the Rift Herald, but someone needs to walk over and pick up the gem, but they're going to turn for the fight first.
Ooh.
Kanavi and Chris finding their way through the front and the back line as top esports now seem to have the majority of the fight on their side. But my screen is frozen, so we're going to see if we can jump back to live. As now we are back. Creme flashing forward, looking to pressure 1xN, dodging out on the Feather Flash, but the Cosmic Binding does not get locked up right in between those two towers. As now 1xN looking for that base, should be safe. Creme just making sure that the rest of the red side jungle quadrant is up for the taking, but he's just going to walk on over to the bottom side of the map. And I imagine, Dimitri, even though we missed the second half of that fight, top esports taking the win on that one.
Thankfully for us, we will hopefully get this replay, as I love the look here from Feather, but no one's in position to deal damage. So the ultimate from Bard just turns into, okay, we're waiting for 1.5 seconds. Now we're coming back into this. 1xN is trying to fire away, but Chris is locking up the back line. You have this incredible DPS coming in from JackeyLove and Creme, and it just turns into a huge win for top esports. Kanavi eventually gets the Rift Herald. That was my big worry as well. I was like, okay, cool, you finished it. But there's this massive fight where you actually don't even get to walk over to it. So they win the fight, they get the Herald, they win the objective as well. TES finally come into a game where the first 15 minutes do go in their favor. They get the advantage on the grubs. They grab themselves the dragon as well. And it's just looking more and more likely that we're going to have a sweep here in the semifinals as we look to crown a second team to go to the grand finals in a couple days' time.
Yeah, 4,000 solid gold advantage for top esports at 17 minutes into the game. Second dragon of the game spawning in the next 35 seconds, and top esports already have their pieces set in order to take that without any contest from ThunderTalk. This wave pushing into the tier 1 turret on the bottom side of the map. That will be knocked down eventually here. Creme just taking his sweet time with it and making sure that ThunderTalk have no realistic way of being able to safely get vision down so that they can make this entrance. This should be a fairly easy macro take for top esports.
So for everybody at home, for any of our would-be potential observers in the future, especially with a champion like Viktor, because we don't have the stacks or how many times he's been able to upgrade, we only can really tell by looking at his abilities and when he uses them. I would like to see in the future more target framing of Viktor, because we're looking at Creme right now. On the bottom left, you can kind of see all his little abilities that are up, his summoner spells. I want to see how many Viktor bucks he has. I want to see, does he have any upgrades coming up soon? Are all of his abilities ready and he's just waiting to get his level 16 or his second point to be able to put more into his ult? That's what I want to see. We got a dragon starting here now though, as 269 is nowhere in the area.
Tempered Fate just pushes Creme off to the side. Kanavi flash over the wall, Cyclone right onto 1xN. That forces his own flash away, and he is completely out of the fight, but he's got a curtain call. He's going to fish for some bullets. Creme has to stand behind the rest of the front line, and he should be relatively safe unless he can bend it like Beckham around the front line. Woohoo! surprisingly a little close for comfort there, but JackeyLove is the one that absorbs the bullet. And 369 wasn't even there at the fight, still has TP, was just pushing on the top side of the map pretty comfortably. And now we got a second teleport, or just a teleport in general, coming in from Creme. They want this turret, and they're going to pressure SeTab off of it. Or maybe not so much unless they force it. Okay.
5 grubs? 4 grubs?
Oh.
Okay, we're TPing. We're fighting for this, boys.
Well, Call of the Forge God does knock him up, but SeTab jumps in with the Between Worlds, gets a decent slow and damage off of Hoya. Needs to go into Mega Gnar form if he wants this fight to work out, but Crisp is looming around the shadows. They get the animation canceled for the Mega Gnar fully off, but Crisp predicts the hop back from SeTab, provides the knock-up, gives the alley-oop 369 to dunk his face on it. Creme picking up the kill on the Hoya, and I don't know, Dimitri, this looks pretty done and dusted for ThunderTalk. They are now 5,000, almost 6,000 gold down in the hole. Top Esports are just seeming to run away with this one.
They contested a dragon that was never going to be theirs. There's also a second dragon in 19 minutes. Just don't think it's a real objective to be fighting for. The Bard ult never lands. Then they go top lane. TT just look out of it. They don't look like they're going to be necessarily a huge threat up against TES, and this is just going to be a victory lap in my opinion. I think from the perceived morale right now, ThunderTalk, it is just not looking good. I don't think they're making great calls around the map. They're losing 2v2s as well. It goes from bad to worse. You have to think about the scaling that this TES roster has. You have the Ornn giving out upgraded items. We've already been talking about Creme on this Viktor. It's just not a great look, and sad, I think, but I want to kind of memorialize, if this is going to be the last game for TT, what a great run they've had throughout this tournament so far. Even though, you know, TES, again, an expected favorite coming into this tournament, ThunderTalk, I think, have put up a great run up against some other teams here, and even making it to the semis.
And Top Esports are going to continue hammering in this advantage as they look for the dive. Feather tries to prevent the dive from happening and stalls some time with the Tempered Fate. It does buy SeTab an escape out as he uses the Between Worlds to jump to the other side of that ring. And Top Esports don't manage to find an additional kill for themselves, but 7,000 gold now being able to pick up after the second tier turret collapsing. And, you know, for Top Esports, I think for them, this is, as you already put it, they're just setting up the dominoes ready to knock down eventually. Unless ThunderTalk, you know, finds some type of, you know, miracle fight where I feel like it is more on Top Esports to mess up rather than ThunderTalk to execute perfectly on.
I do want to give some flowers as well to Top Esports. We've been kind of playing up TT a lot just because they are a home crowd favorite. We have a lot of great fans, and they are an underdog team making it so far to the semifinals. But TES, only 2 games prior to the series, they played in the quarterfinals. They absolutely demolished IG and the Shy rookie roster to everybody's chagrin. So we're looking at TES to not only bring home a Demacia Cup win, but I think in general, bring home one of the cups here. When we're talking about LPL, they haven't been able to win since summer of 2020. Still had JackeyLove. They brought in Kanavi and Chris to hopefully level up the team and bring a level of consistency to the roster, some higher highs for the squad. And they were able to finish with they had some pretty great finishes in the last year, but just not really able to kind of crest the hump at that point. So I think for Top Esports, this is a roster that is definitely looking to make a splash and try to win at least one of the splits that we have, since we are going into a 3-split system.
Top Esports are itching for a fight in this blue side quadrant. ThunderTalk do a decent job of being able to disengage from anything that could have been potentially game ending, as we're 22.5 minutes in here. Death timers are not extremely long, but with how close they are to unlocking the base and where the minion waves are, a couple of kills could have been enough for Top Esports to completely just take the entire base of ThunderTalk Gaming. As for now, they hold the ground, and they make sure that Top Esports are not in a position where they can just rip the Baron on sight. They are going to take their time and instead play for the 3rd dragon of the game, as 369 getting a decent chunk. Is he just going to solo out Hoya? Oh, man. If we're at this state in the Gnar and Ornn matchup, I don't know what else to say. It's that saving grace for Hoya. He tries to occupy the minion wave, but you know, before that death, he was only a Trinity Force and half components on that Black Cleaver to a 2 fully item completed Ornn, and that just seems too much to handle.
Yeah, especially if we're at that stage. So looks like Viktor has upgraded his abilities, so we are getting a really strong Viktor. It's going to be something that's going to be a bit of a terror, and I just don't think there's much that TES can do wrong in this game right now. They are so far ahead, even though it's only 7,000 gold. You have to think 3 dragons, multiple turrets, the experience differential, especially in mid lane right now. Creme being a level and a half up gives you so much room to work with as TES, and a lot of leeway if you are starting to lose, maybe a surprise fight here and there. So it's great for Demacia Cup. TES have not been able to win Demacia Cup since 2021. That was also with JackeyLove. So JackeyLove being on the roster for 4 years. It's really cool, kind of the intersection of some really long-standing players. Unfortunately, with TES losing Mako, they would have had like the trio of players that have been on certain teams or on certain rosters for multiple years. JackeyLove being here for 4 or 5 years. Kanavi being on JDG for 5 years. I think if they also had Mako, you think about his run with EDG. That could have been, I think, a lot of great fun we could have had as a narrative for the broadcast. But Mako ended up moving on to another team, and TES trying to make good for, you know, the changes that they did make to the roster. And for TT, I think that this roster should be hopefully looking to kind of make a splash, maybe in a group Nirvana sense, where they're trying to end up top 4 and make it into like a season playoffs, or working into potentially qualifying as a top 8 team.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you're able to, you know, take a game off of JDG in your respective group, I think that is, you know, it's very meritable in that own sense, as Top Esports might just be making that game-winning engage, as SeTab is going to throw a desperation Hail Mary attempt trying to flank the back line with that Between Worlds, and Creme is chunked out of the fight, but not necessarily in lethal range. Kanavi is trying to dodge on these bullets, and I thought that last one was going to curve, but Fog of War obscuring where Kanavi was and just barely being able to dodge out. ThunderTalk, they do lose their middle inhibitor, but they don't lose the game just yet. Down 8,000 gold. They're still in it, Dimitri.
They're in it in physicality. They're physically in the game.
Spiritually,
per the game rules and typically how advantages work, they're not in here. They are very much not in here, and that's going to be Creme almost finding a kill onto Beichuan.
Oh wait,
but
really good
maybe make a turn.
I mean, Creme still has a flash to work with, so he's not in any real danger just yet. I thought for a moment maybe ThunderTalk could have the movement speed to wrap around and look for a pick that could have turned the tides in their favor and really put a stun into Creme's acceleration, since he is working with that BM book now, 10 stacks on the Magi Soul Sealer, but nobody from ThunderTalk can really safely make an entrance here onto the Baron pit. Beichuan was chunked out, so this is a safe time for Top Esports to rip that Baron. Now the gold lead nearing that 10,000 gold of no return for ThunderTalk. Cloud Soul coming up in the next couple of minutes. We are practically one good fight from Top Esports to ending this game, to ending this series, and moving them into the grand finals against Anyone's Legend.
For sure. And for Anyone's Legends, they have been a team that has, I think, not surprised people, but they are a team that I think are a bit more difficult to read, especially for how well they've done so far in their semifinals and even in their group stage. They made a big change, bringing in Flandre and Tarzan into the roster, and I think people were thinking, okay, is this AL team really going to be able to shape up? They probably are going to make top 8 here at Demacia Cup, but much past that, we don't know. We'll have to hold that question for tomorrow or in a couple days when Grand Finals is played. But TES just playing with their food right now. They're kind of fishing with some of the ultimates now. I think we're getting in that part where that restlessness starts to kick in. TES want to close this out.
SeTab sends it, pops the Between Worlds, tries to look for Creme, but he gets blown up. Power of the Arcane, as Top Esports riding on that anime high, as they have the Power of God and anime on their side, and it's all about strength, it's all about power, and Top Esports have tons of it in supply. Creme adding up the stacks on that BM book, reaching 25, 705 on the Viktor. Surely this is an MVP performance worth deserving and rewarding for himself. GG to Top Esports. They sweep ThunderTalk out of the bracket.
That'll be a 3-0 for one of our favorites to win the tournament, and looking forward to LPL in 2025, one of our favorites to potentially win one of the splits, go to an international, and represent the LPL in the coming year. Honestly, light work, no reaction. ThunderTalk, I'm glad that we had them. I think that the run that they had was really inspiring, but they just weren't able to kind of pull it together, and up against the might of TES, they got completely smashed. It didn't even matter if they had early game victories, if they got all the grubs, if it looked even convincing. TES just had no say about it. They were like, look, we're going to win. We're going to make sure it looks really dominant, and we're going to have some pretty great performances even past the 15-minute mark.